Hi, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be here. Um, I want to dedicate the next few moments to tell you a little bit some of the exciting things that are opening up now in Israel, both for the veteran visitor and for first timers. These are things that are honestly, even as somebody has been traveling and touring and teaching this land for more than 30 years, still excite me very, very much. Those of you who have visited Israel and especially specifically Jerusalem would have stopped at the city of David, where it all began. The city of David, you will find biblical archaeology that spans the time from King David until Jesus and beyond. It's literally where 60% of the Bible was written, and the evidence is just shouting out of the ground, and it's everywhere. The most exciting recent discovery in the city of David, or I should say, most recently open to the public, this has been now being excavated for almost 15 years, is the Pilgrim's Road. The Pilgrim's Road is the ancient boulevard, the highway in Jerusalem that connects the Pool of Siloam all the way to the Temple Mount. Any visitor to Jerusalem, whether it was a pilgrim from Judea, from the Galilee, from Egypt, from Mesopotamia, or from Rome and Greece, anybody coming to Jerusalem would have entered through the southern gate, washed their feet and their face in the pool of Siloam, and then began the ascent. In Hebrew, la'alot baregel, to rise, the ascent up to the Temple Mount, where they would worship, bring sacrifices, and pay homage to the God of Israel. And along the way, there will be shops and stores and places to buy souvenirs and give speeches and teach and learn and meet other pilgrims as they're making their way to God's house, to the temple. It's on this road that the Bible tells us the story of Jesus meeting a blind man and sending him to wash his eyes after covering them with dirt to the pool of Siloam, and where he would begin to see. And from there, from that moment, from pool of Siloam, he would have walked up the temple to the temple on the road. That same road is now exposed and is available to the public to walk up. The same flagstones, the original stones of Jerusalem, are now visible and exposed. Back then, they were open to the sky, and today they're underground because now people live there and the excavation go under the foundations of their homes. But you can walk up the entire way from the Pool of Siloam all the way up to the site of the temple, as our ancestors did in the times of old. One of the most exciting findings along this path is a small stone pyramid, a stepped rise platform where one could stand up and give a large speech. In fact, Jewish sources, the Mishnah talks about a place in Jerusalem where people would go and stand and announce whether they lost something or found something, or gave a speech or taught a bit of Jewish law. It is likely at a place like that, or maybe even that place specifically, that Paul stood up and gave his big speech, as recorded in Acts chapter 2. And that day, 3,000 people were baptized and were saved. There's only one place in Jerusalem where 3,000 people can go immerse themselves in water and rise at the same time, and that's the Pool of Siloam. And if you be there yourself, you see the size and the depth. Massive construction with a dam that closes off the water. It's right there in front of us. And again, the words of the Bible leap into our view as we are walking up that path. So it's been excavated for almost a decade and a half, but now, only now, available to the public. And that's the first place I would recommend for those of you who are visiting this fall to come and see in Jerusalem. Of course, the rest of the site, the city of David, is open for you. I want to stay in Jerusalem. I want to stay in Jerusalem and tell you something very exciting that's happening right now. And it'll be going right now through the month of October. And that is the exhibit of the original Isaiah scroll from the Dead Sea Scrolls. Now, I want you to understand, I don't mean the original manuscript that was written by the prophet Isaiah. But shortly after that, shortly after him, a scroll was copied down by the Dead Sea sect, by a scribe that lived by the Dead Sea in a town called Qumran. And there, in the first century BC copied the entire scroll of Isaiah, all 66 chapters. When the Romans came to destroy Judea in the year 66, they arrived also at the Dead Sea and destroyed that town. Not before the scribes of Qumran were able to hide those scrolls in large clay jars in the caves in the mountains. The dry conditions in the Dead Sea area preserved those scrolls, and they were found. They were found in 1947, in November of 1947, just a short time before the reconstitution, the reestablishment of the State of Israel. It is then, in November 47, that the scrolls were able to be purchased by archaeologists of the Israel Museum. The Archbishop Samuel of the Greek Orthodox Church was able to buy the Isaiah scroll. He took it with him to the United States in 1954, advertised in the New York Times, and it was bought by Israeli archaeologist Yigael Yadin. That scroll was brought back to Israel and confirmed to be the Isaiah scroll. Again, all 66 chapters right there for our view, and now for the first time to the public in an exhibit that you can view for yourself in the Israel Museum. What makes this the most important archaeological finding of our time? The Dead Sea Scrolls are manuscripts of Bible that were written 2,000 and 2,200 years ago. And they are identical to the Masoretic text that we read today. It is a confirmation of the text that we read, the foundation of Western civilization that was not changed, was not altered, and is now visible for us, for our own eyes, in the Israel Museum. So those of you who visit Israel in the next few months, I recommend wholeheartedly visit the Israel Museum, buy tickets to see the Isaiah scroll, and be amazed by the authenticity of the Bible. From Jerusalem, I want to go with you to the south. We are now, this October, we'll be commemorating the 3rd anniversary of the October 7th massacre. And it's very interesting for visitors to come and see how Israelis cope with grief, how Israelis cope with the disaster, not only from the perspective of commemoration and memorial, but also, and even more so, from the perspective of resilience and rebuilding. When we visit the southern part of Israel, the Western Negev today, you'll not only see memorials for October 7th, the worst atrocity against Jews since the Holocaust. You will also see the memorials. You will see how these places that have been the site of terrible massacres are now being built up as a place of memorial for those who died there, those who fought there, those who chose life there. But more so, the rebuilding of the cities and the towns, the agriculture, the industry that is in that area. When you travel that area, you not only do you see flourishing fields, the wheat is growing again, the orchards are flourishing again, but the communities themselves, new neighborhoods are being built, new buildings are being built. You'll see cranes in the towns of Sderot and new neighborhoods in the kibbutzim that only 3 years ago suffered the most terrible atrocities. It is a testament to the spirit of Israel, to the idea of resilience and the idea of rebuilding and reconstitution of a people knowing that they are planted in their land and they will not be moved from there. From the south, let's head to the north. Now, those of you who've been to Israel will know that around the Sea of Galilee, you can literally walk around with an open Bible. One of the few places in the world you can, well, the only place in the world in Israel is Israel where you can walk around with an open Bible and point. And the sites around the Sea of Galilee that are associated with the life of Jesus are truly something to behold. They make the Bible come alive. Once you stand on the mountain of Beatitudes and read the words from the Sermon on the Mountain and see the same mountains, the same water, the same skyline that Jesus saw when he read those words, you'll never read the Bible in the same way ever again. For those of you who've been, and I recommend to visit again, today in the Yigal Alon Museum in the Ginosar, in the kibbutz Ginosar in the Valley of Gennesaret, is on exhibit some of the most impressive mosaics ever found in the region. A synagogue in Hukuk, just a short distance from the Sea of Galilee that has been excavated in the last 5 years and have been found with the most amazing mosaics depicting many, many biblical scenes, from the crossing of the Red Sea to the flood by Noah, and of course, the traditional sacrifice of Isaac. There are other historical events that are commemorated in those mosaics, and they are now on exhibit in the Galalon Museum by the Sea of Galilee. This specific synagogue is dated to the late Byzantine area. So we're talking about a time that until now scholars believed was mostly Christian, mostly Byzantine. But what we understand from this mosaic, the landscape is still very much Jewish. These synagogues and the biblical stories that they tell through these mosaics are a testament to the flourishing Jewish life and the importance of the biblical narrative and the biblical stories as a foundation stone to people's lives, still late into the Byzantine period until the Muslim conquest of the 7th century. Those of you who have not visited the Sea of Galilee, at least in the last several years, or if you've been in the past and need to go again, much has changed. For example, the town of Magdala. The town of Magdala is now excavated to a very high degree. Not only have they found the shops and the markets and the port of the town of Magdala, they also excavated the great synagogue of the town. It is likely, again, as a tour guide, I can say this. As an archaeologist, I would probably be a little bit more reserved. But as a tour guide, I can tell you there is a high level of certainty that in that synagogue in Magdala, in a very small enclosure of a square space where there are benches and a beautifully decorated carved stone of limestone, in that small space, Jesus stood and taught and interacted with the townfolk of Magdala. It's there, of course, that he met Mary of Magdalene, and she became his disciple. The town of Magdala is now excavated. It's also a beautiful guest house for Christian pilgrims, with a beautiful church, Duc in Altum, into the deep, which has both it's run by a Catholic order, but it has Catholic, Orthodox, and Protestant elements into it. And one of the unique elements about this church and this site is the celebration of the Jewish life of Jesus. The emphasis on mikvaot, on ritual baths, of course, the source for the practice of baptism, and the Jewish life of the town of Magdala at the time of Jesus. The town of Magdala was destroyed in the year 66. Evidence of the destruction is ample, and the stories of the destruction is told in Josephus's description of the war of the Jews against the Romans is there evident in front of our eyes. So the last thing I would recommend to you when you're up north is connected to what I mentioned earlier. The book of Isaiah talks of many of the prophecies of redemption and the regrowth and rebuilding, reconstitution, and bringing water to a parched land. A world first in Israel is a project called the Reverse Carrier. The National Carrier is a project that was built in the 1960s that brought water from the water-rich north to the desert in the south. Today, Israel desalinates most of its drinking water. We have won the war on water. Most of the water in our taps is desalinated, which means that we are now, for the very first time in history of humankind, able to take water from the Mediterranean Sea, desalinate it, draw it up the mountain of the Galilee, and then let it flow back into the Sea of Galilee. So even at years of drought, we are able to sustain life in Israel and return water to nature, restore the parched land, allow water to flow back into the Sea of Galilee, and then restore the path of the River Jordan. If you are up to it, it is the Nachal Tzalmon, the Tzalmon riverbed. It is about a 4-mile hike. You put in your navigation app in Waze or in Google or in Apple, or whatever navigation app you use to arrive at the Tzalmon riverbed. It is a car park, and you walk towards the riverbed. The water is gushing out of the water. This is desalinated water that is now flowing back into the Sea of Galilee. Truly, truly miraculous and happening in front of our eyes. I can go on for a long time, but unfortunately, our time is limited today. I invite you to come and visit Israel. I invite you to come and experience the land for yourself, see what the fuss is all about. And while your friends who've come back to Israel can't seem to stop talking about it. I promise you this, once you visit Israel and you understand the geography of the land, you will never read the Bible the same way ever again. But I also know that it's not always possible. I know that now times are difficult. I know they're travel warnings. I know that the news you hear about Israel is not great, although subscribers to Newsrael know that the fake news is largely mistaken and that our lives here are very, very different. But I know that it's not always easy to travel. And so I created a special program that I call the Fifth Gospel. The Fifth Gospel is a online course, the geographical course of the Holy Land as reflected in biblical scripture. I named it the Fifth Gospel after a saying by Saint Jerome. In the 5th century, Saint Jerome said, there are actually 5 Gospels. There are 4 in the gospel and the books that you know. And the 5th is a land they call holy. The land itself, the geography of the land is the gospel. You learn the 5th gospel and the 4 will open up to you. And so the online course, the 5th Gospel, goes through the geographical regions of the land of Israel, explains through biblical text the importance of these different regions, and then goes through several different sites as though you are on pilgrimage. It's almost like a virtual tour of the land from site to site with videos and with maps and with text and with images, gives you a great description of the Holy Land. And for Newsrael subscribers only, I made a special coupon code. If you insert the word Newsrael at your checkout, you'll receive a 50% discount on this online course. You can find it on my website at urigoldflam.com, and I will be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have from this point on. Thank you. Thank you, Ronen, for this opportunity.